Chat on Newsday Amarillo and News Channel 10-2. I'm David Lovejoy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Rhonda Lahnert.
And I'm Chuckalicious, Chuck Williams.
Yes, is a regular with us, Mr. Thomas Fellows, an author, a man of business, a man of growth, talking about his new book. And it's something I think sometimes we have a hard time addressing. I think we could tackle a lot of ills that are in our community and in our day-to-day if we learn this one valuable tool. Thomas, welcome back. How are you doing today, man?
Yes, thanks so much for having me. Are you all surviving with this weather?
Barely.
Today's 70s coming in, but yeah, we're a little ecstatic over it.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Thomas. The importance of making apologies. This is important. I was just thinking yesterday, I was having a conversation, and I thought, if I could just get this person to understand that you can start the healing with an apology.
Yes.
So talk to us about why you wrote this book and what you want to convey with its message.
Well, there's really three types of three types of humility. There's not bragging about yourself. There's not thinking that you're a know-it-all, and then there's apologizing. And most people focus on, not bragging at all to be humble. But I think maybe the most humble thing you can do is to apologize. And so Nasir Ghamli, who's a mentor of mine, who wrote A First Rate Madness, talks about how most people have a hard time apologizing, admitting error, changing our minds. It takes more than the typical amount of self-awareness to realize that someone is wrong and admit it.
Sometimes it seems like we apologize too much. Is that an issue?
Well, I've noticed the most moral people that I know are the ones who apologize. And there's so many times that I want to get somebody to apologize and they just won't do it. And what I've noticed is that when you do apologize to somebody, you can build up that relationship even stronger than it was before because of the respect that you have for that person and admitting your faults and admitting that you treated them wrong.
Oh, okay.
We look at apologizing to someone. It's from the shoes of someone who needs to render that or tender that apology. They have to go into a mindset and they have to understand one thing. I think there's one thing that we always forget about when we talk about apology. The offended party or the other party doesn't have to accept your apology. And that's okay too. If they decide not to accept your apology, you made the effort, you reached out with that peace branch, that olive branch, you tried to make the effort. What they do with that apology is now out of your control, isn't it?
That's exactly right. And I've got to apologize to many people who I haven't apologized to. But typically, again, it builds up strength in that relationship. And what apologizing really takes is it takes a lot of discipline. And my favorite Bible verse is Hebrews 12:11. Discipline is unpleasant at the time, but later on produces a harvest full of righteousness and peace for those who are trying it. And it takes one being hard on themselves, which is something that doesn't really exist in, today's hyper, consumer society where you're supposed to feel happy all the time and never admit your faults. But that existed, 100 years ago with the Greatest Generation.
Would a key word in this conversation, Thomas, be accountability?
Oh, absolutely. Even if you look at George Washington, if you're going to paraphrase George Washington, he said, discipline makes small numbers formidable. And it really makes you stronger and you stand out in an organization as somebody who is going to hold themselves accountable and so forth.
I'm kind of chuckling inside my head because it makes me think of the Fonz on Happy Days, because there was this episode where he couldn't even say the word. And so is there merit to an apology where maybe you really don't feel that you're wrong, but you know that someone was offended should you go ahead and apologize just for the act that, I'm sorry that you saw it this way, but maybe you don't even feel like you were wrong?
Well, that takes a strong person to do that. And it reminds me, it takes a exceptional emotional intelligence to do that. And anyway, it reminds me of a quote by Nick Carraway when he's talking about the great Jay Gatsby and the Great Gatsby, where he says he smiled understandingly, much more than understandingly. It was one of those rare smiles with the quality of eternal reassurance you may run across 4 or 5 times in life. It faced or seemed to face the whole eternal world for an instant and smiled on you with an irresistible prejudice in your favor. It understood you as far as you wanted to be understood. It believed in you as you like to believe in yourself. It had precisely the impression of you that at your best, you hope to convey. And when you can understand and empathize and have that empathy, apologizing takes a lot of empathy. You can be very, very successful.
You talk about the issue of empathy. Empathy is a form of apology, whether you say it or not. Is it not?
Absolutely. Even if you look at a quote by MLK, he said, "I'll never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought,
You ought to be, right.
And it's really stepping into the shoes of another person. And To Kill a Mockingbird, when Atticus is talking to Scout, he says, you never really understand a person until you climb into his skin and walk around in it.
Thomas, this learning to apologize, learning the steps to be accountable, these things we're talking about. Yes, somebody might have been offended by something. Somebody might have felt slighted or wrong. Whether you feel it to what degree is not the issue, but it really is a way as a mature, growing adult to grow, is it? This is by tendering an apology is really your opportunity to have growth in your life, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And most people think you're weak by apologizing, but
Right.
it actually projects a whole lot of strength.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Thomas, what's the title of this new book out, and where can we get
The
it?
Criminal, The Power of Apology. Thanks so much. Look forward to coming back on soon.
Always. Check out Thomas's website. He has a host of great books, great advice, and great information. The Mentor's Mentor, Thomas Fellows, joins us today. We're going to take a quick break. We're back with more chat right after this.